The attic always smelled like memories, musty photo albums, and forgotten perfume bottles that still held traces of Mom. I hadn't planned on spending my Saturday afternoon up here, but Dad's announcement about decluttering sent me scrambling to salvage what I could before Serafina got her hands on our past. That's when I found the video camera. The small screen flickered to life, and suddenly Mom was there, sitting in our old rocking chair. Her dark hair was shorter than I remembered, but her smile, God, her smile hadn't changed at all in my memory. "Sweet dreams, my little star," she sang, her voice slightly scratchy through the tiny speaker. The lullaby she'd sung to me every night until I was 12. Until she couldn't anymore. "Callie, are you up there?" Serafina's voice carried through the floorboards, syrupy sweet as always. I quickly pressed pause, my heart pounding. "Just organizing some things," I called back, trying to keep my voice steady. "Well, your father wants to discuss the renovation plans over dinner. Don't be too long." I waited until her footsteps faded before pressing play again. But instead of the lullaby continuing, the video jumped to a different scene. Mom was alone in her study, looking directly into the camera. "Kelly, if you're watching this..." She paused, tucking her hair behind her ear, a gesture I'd inherited. "I need you to know something. There's a letter in my old jewelry box, the blue one with the silver clasp. I hope you never need to read it, but if things..." She glanced over her shoulder, then back at the camera. "If things aren't what they seem, you'll find what you need to know there." The video ended abruptly. My hands shook as I rewound it, watching that last part again. Mom had recorded this message knowing she was sick, knowing she might not be here. But what did she mean about things not being what they seem? I scrambled through the boxes until I found the jewelry box. It was exactly where she said it would be, wedged between her old yearbooks and a stack of birthday cards. The silver clasp had tarnished, but it opened with a soft click. Inside, beneath a tangle of costume jewelry, was an envelope with my name written in Mom's elegant handwriting. Before I could open it, voices drifted up from below. "The attic will make a perfect nursery once we clear out all this." Serafina's voice grew closer. "The light up here is gorgeous." "I don't know," Dad replied. "Callie might not." "Emmett, we talked about this. Changes are necessary for healing. You can't keep living in a shrine to Laurel." I shoved the letter into my pocket just as their footsteps reached the top of the stairs. Dad appeared first, his face brightening when he saw me. "Hey, kiddo. Find anything interesting?" I forced a smile, acutely aware of the letter burning against my leg. "Just some old photos." Serafina appeared behind him, her hand resting possessively on his shoulder. "Oh, we should go through those together. Make a proper album of the best ones before we clear everything out." "Clear everything out?" I echoed. "Well, with the baby coming." She patted her still flat stomach meaningfully. "We need to make room for new memories too." Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. I clutched Mom's video camera tighter, my fingernails digging into the plastic. "Right," I said. "New memories." Later, alone in my room, I pulled out Mom's letter. The envelope was sealed with wax, a detail so perfectly Mom it made my throat tight. Whatever she needed to tell me, whatever she was worried about, it was important enough to hide. Important enough to make sure I'd find it. I broke the seal. Mom's letter trembled in my hands as I read it for the 10th time. Her warnings about protecting what matters and watching for signs seemed cryptic at first, but after this morning's breakfast announcement, everything clicked into horrible focus. "We're getting married." Serafina had practically sung the words, flashing her diamond ring while Dad beamed beside her. "And that's not all. We're renovating the entire house. A fresh start for our new family." Now, sitting in my usual spot at Luca's coffee shop, I could barely keep my hands steady enough to hold my cup. "She's already talking about painting over Mom's mural in the living room," I told him. "The one Mom spent months working on when she was sick." Luca leaned across the counter, his dark eyes serious. "That's messed up. What did your dad say?" "Nothing. He just nodded along like some puppet." The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. "He doesn't even see what she's doing." "Which is what, exactly?" "Erasing Mom. Piece by piece." I pulled out my phone, showing him the photos I'd taken of the attic boxes. Look at these labels: donate, trash, storage. She's already sorting through our memories like they're yard sale items. The bell above the door chimed, and Serafina herself walked in, wearing that perfect smile that never quite reached her eyes. I quickly shoved my phone away. "Callie, sweetheart, I thought I might find you here." She approached the counter, her heels clicking against the tile. "I need your help with something special. I'm kind of busy. It's about the wedding." She placed her hand on my arm, her grip just tight enough to make me uncomfortable. "I want you to be my maid of honor." The coffee turned to acid in my stomach. "What? Wouldn't it be perfect? A symbol of our families truly becoming one." Her voice dropped lower. "Meant just for me. Your father would be so happy." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Dad. "Please say yes. It would mean everything to me." Of course he was in on this. I looked at Luca, who was pretending to clean the espresso machine while obviously listening. "Can I think about it?" Something flickered behind Serafina's smile. "Of course, darling. But don't take too long. We're announcing the wedding party at dinner tonight. The whole family will be there, even your grandmother Edna." My head snapped up. "Gran's coming." "Oh, didn't your father tell you?" "I invited her specially." Serafina adjusted her designer purse. She was so touched to be included. "It's been what, 6 months since you've seen her?" 8 months, actually. Ever since Serafina had convinced Dad that Gran's negative energy about their relationship wasn't healthy for anyone. "Well, I should run. So many details to arrange." She turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Callie? That lovely blue dress you wore to your mother's memorial? It would be perfect for the engagement party." After she left, Luca let out a low whistle. "Wow, that was strategic." I finished, my mind racing. She's using Gran to pressure me. And that comment about Mom's memorial dress? She's trying to prove she can touch anything, even the most painful parts of our past. "So, what are you going to do?" I pulled out Mom's letter again, focusing on the last line. "Sometimes the best defense is to let them think they've won." "I'm going to say yes," I said, a plan already forming. "I'm going to be the perfect maid of honor. And then I'm going to figure out exactly what she's hiding." "Callie." Luca's voice held a warning. "You didn't see what else I found in the attic, Luca." I reached into my bag, pulling out a small notebook I discovered hidden behind Mom's jewelry box. I think Mom knew something about Serafina. Something big. The engagement dinner felt like a carefully orchestrated performance, with Serafina as both director and star. Gran sat across from me, her fingers nervously twisting her wedding ring, a habit Mom used to have too. When she caught my eye, she gave me a slight nod that spoke volumes. "A toast," Serafina announced, rising from her seat. "To family, both old and new." Her eyes lingered on me. "And to Callie, who's agreed to be my maid of honor." The clinking of glasses couldn't mask the whispers. I caught fragments. "After everything." The therapy sessions. Unstable since her mother. My fork clattered against the plate. "What therapy sessions?" The room went silent. Dad shifted uncomfortably, while Serafina's perfect smile never wavered. "Oh, darling," she said, her voice dripping with concern. "We don't need to discuss that here. Everyone understands you're still processing your grief." "What are you talking about?" I turned to Dad. "What has she been telling people?" "Callie," Dad started, but Serafina touched his arm, silencing him. "I've only shared what Dr. Matthews told us," she said. "About your episodes. The ones where you imagine I'm trying to replace your mother." The room spun. "Dr. Matthews? I've never seen a Dr. Matthews." "See." Serafina's whisper carried just far enough for the closest guests to hear. "The denial is part of the pattern." Gran's chair scraped back. "That's enough, Serafina. Edna, please. This is exactly why we've had to limit your visits. Your enabling only makes things worse." I stood up so quickly my water glass toppled, spreading across the pristine tablecloth like a stain. "You're the reason Gran stopped coming?" "Callie." Dad's voice held a warning. "Sit down." "No." I pulled out my phone, hands shaking. You want to talk about patterns? Let's talk about Mom's notebook. The one where she wrote about running into you 3 years before she died, when you were using a different name. Serafina's smile flickered. I don't know what you're. Rachel Wilson. That was your name then, wasn't it? When you worked at the hospital where Mom was getting treatment. The color drained from her face. Callie, stop this, Dad demanded, but I could see uncertainty creeping into his expression. Mom wrote everything down. How you accessed her medical records, how you… That's enough. Serafina's mask cracked. She turned to Dad, tears welling up. Do you see what I mean? These delusional accusations. They're not delusions. Gran's voice cut through the chaos. She pulled out a folded paper from her purse. I have the hospital records right here. Rachel Wilson was fired for unauthorized access to patient files, including Laurel's. The silence that followed was deafening. Serafina's tears vanished as quickly as they'd appeared. Emmett, she said, her voice hard. Take your daughter upstairs. Now. But Dad didn't move. He was staring at the hospital records in Gran's hands. I think, he said slowly, you're the one who needs to leave, Serafina. She laughed, but it was brittle. You can't be serious. After everything I've done for this family? You mean everything you've done to this family? I corrected, finally seeing her clearly. How long were you watching us? Planning this. Serafina's composure shattered completely. She grabbed her purse, nearly knocking over her chair. You ungrateful little… She caught herself, aware of the audience. Fine, but don't think this is over. As she stormed out, I noticed something had fallen from her purse. A small key with a familiar blue tassel, the same one missing from Mom's jewelry box. I picked it up, remembering Mom's words about things not being what they seemed. Whatever secrets that key unlocked, whatever truth Serafina was hiding, I was going to find out. But first, I had to deal with Dad, who looked like his whole world had just crumbled. Again. The key burned in my pocket as I watched Dad pack Serafina's things into boxes. 3 days since the dinner, and he still moved like a sleepwalker, mechanical and distant. When he picked up her framed photo from his nightstand, his hands trembled. I found something else, I said, breaking the heavy silence. In Mom's old study. He didn't look up. Callie, I can't. Not right now. It's about the hospital records. I pulled out the stack of papers Gran had helped me gather. Serafina, Rachel, whatever her name is, she didn't just access Mom's files. She accessed yours too. That got his attention. What? Your medical history, insurance information, financial records. My voice caught. Everything someone would need to target you. The frame slipped from his hands, glass shattering across the hardwood floor. Among the shards, I noticed something odd. A second photo behind the first, partially visible through the broken glass. Dad saw it too. He knelt down, carefully pulling it free. His face went ash-white. Dad. This is impossible, he whispered. This photo. It's from your mother's last art show. But Serafina, she wasn't there. We didn't meet until… But there she was, lurking in the background, watching our family with calculated interest. 2 years before she'd supposedly run into Dad at the grocery store. 2 years before their chance meeting. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Ask your father about the life insurance policy. What life insurance policy? I asked. Dad's expression crumpled. How did you… Dad. He sank onto the bed. Your mother's policy. There were complications with the payout. Serafina, she works in insurance, said she could help expedite things. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. She engineered everything. Meeting you, helping with the claim. Miss me already? Serafina's voice cut through the room like ice. She stood in the doorway, wearing the same perfect smile that had fooled us for so long. Oh, don't look so surprised. Did you really think a little key and some old hospital records would be enough to get rid of me? Get out, I said, stepping between her and Dad. Gladly. Once I get what I came for. She pulled out a folder. Emmett, darling, remember those papers you signed last week? The ones about updating the house deed. Dad went even paler. You said those were for the renovation permits. Did I? Her smile widened. You really should read things more carefully, especially documents that transfer property ownership. You can't, I started, but she cut me off. I already have. This house, the insurance money, everything, it's mine now. Legally binding. She glanced at her watch. You have 24 hours to vacate the premises. Like hell we do, I snapped, but Dad's next word stopped me cold. She's right. His voice was hollow. I signed everything over. I didn't even read. Serafina blew us a kiss. I'll send movers for my things tomorrow. Do try to be gone by then. She turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Callie? Your mother's studio? I think it'll make a lovely home gym. After she left, I pulled out Mom's key with the blue tassel. Whatever was behind this, whatever she was really after, the answer had to be in Mom's old files. We had 24 hours to find it. Dad, I said, watching him stare at the broken picture frame. I need you to tell me everything. From the beginning. No more secrets. He nodded slowly, and for the first time since Mom died, I saw a spark of his old strength return. Where do you want to start? Mom's study remained exactly as she'd left it, a time capsule of half-finished paintings and coffee-stained notebooks. We had less than 18 hours before Serafina's deadline, and somewhere in this room lay the truth she'd tried so hard to hide. The key is to fit something in here, I said, running my fingers along the spines of old journals. Dad stood in the doorway, unable to cross the threshold he'd avoided for 3 years. Your mother spent hours in here that last month, he said quietly. I thought she was working on her final collection, but the sound of a car door slamming made us both jump. Through the window, I watched Serafina escort a well-dressed man toward the house. That's James Morton, Dad's voice cracked. My investment advisor. The one who suggested the life insurance policy? Before he could answer, voices drifted up from below. Everything's proceeding as planned, Serafina was saying. Once we liquidate the assets. I turned to Dad. Assets? What assets? His face went slack. The art collection. Your mother's paintings. They're worth. How much? Nearly $2 million. The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. Mom's art had always been valuable, but this was different. This was why Serafina had pushed so hard to control the house, why she'd tried to isolate us from Gran and anyone else who might ask questions. The blue-tasseled key caught the light, and suddenly I remembered something. Mom's old filing cabinet. The one she'd kept locked because it held her contracts and sales records. My hands shook as I tried the key. It clicked. Inside, beneath stacks of gallery receipts, lay a sealed envelope addressed to the insurance adjuster. I tore it open, scanning the contents. With each line, my blood ran colder. Dad, I whispered. Mom knew. Knew what? About the fraud. About Serafina, Rachel, whatever her name is. She's done this before. Multiple times. She targets artists, grieving families. My voice caught. Mom was investigating her. That's why Serafina needed access to her medical records. She needed to know how much time she had left. Heavy footsteps on the stairs. Dad quickly pulled me away from the cabinet, just as Serafina appeared in the doorway. How touching, she said, taking in the scene. A family reunion in the shrine of dear, departed Laurel. Her eyes fixed on the open filing cabinet. Finding anything interesting? Just memories, I said, slipping the letter into my back pocket. Though I'm sure you'll turn this into your home gym soon enough. Oh, sweetheart. She stepped closer, her perfume suffocating. I have much bigger plans than that. Your mother's entire collection goes up for auction next week. I already have buyers lined up. You can't. I can. And I will. She turned to Dad. James is waiting downstairs. There are some final papers to sign. Dad straightened, something of his old strength returning. No. No. Her smile turned razor sharp. Need I remind you what happens if you don't cooperate? How quickly rumors spread about unstable teenagers and negligent fathers. I felt Dad flinch beside me, but before either of us could respond, a small voice piped up from the hallway. Mommy? Jasper stood there in his dinosaur pajamas, clutching a familiar sketchbook. I found this in your room. The lady in the pictures looks like you, but the name is different. Serafina's mask slipped for just a moment, real fear flashing across her face. Because in Jasper's hands was Mom's research notebook, the one containing evidence of every identity Serafina had ever stolen, every family she'd destroyed. And now we had proof. Serafina moved faster than any of us expected. Within seconds, she'd snatched the notebook from Jasper's hands, shoving him aside with enough force to make him stumble. Dad lunged to catch him, leaving me alone facing Serafina's rage. "You really are your mother's daughter," she snarled, all pretense of charm vanishing. "Always digging where you don't belong." "Mom figured out what you were," I said, backing toward the filing cabinet. "That's why you needed her medical records. You needed to know if she'd live long enough to expose you." Her laugh was hollow. "Laurel was already dying. I just expedited things." The world stopped. "What did you do?" "Insurance companies are so particular about medication records." She leafed through Mom's notebook, her smile growing colder. One small discrepancy in her prescriptions, and suddenly her policy becomes contestable. Stress like that can be devastating for terminal patients. Dad's voice cracked. You changed her medications?" "I did what was necessary." She pulled out her phone. "Now, unless you want Jasper's custody arrangement to become very complicated, you'll sign these final papers, Emmett." "Don't," I pleaded, but Dad's shoulders slumped in defeat. "I have to protect him," he whispered. "Dad, she killed Mom?" "Allegedly," Serafina corrected, striking a match. "But good luck proving anything without this." The notebook caught fire, pages curling into ash. "Now, about those papers?" A small voice piped up from the doorway. I took pictures. We all turned. Jasper stood there, holding my phone, his dinosaur pajamas glowing in the dark hallway. "What?" Serafina's mask slipped completely. "The pretty pictures in the book," he said. "I sent them to Callie's phone, like you taught me with your iPad." For one beautiful moment, triumph surged through me. Then Serafina's face transformed into something terrible. "Delete them," she commanded, advancing on me. "Now." "They're already backed up to the cloud," I bluffed, praying she couldn't tell I was lying. "Everyone will know what you did." She moved with startling speed, grabbing my arm and twisting until pain shot through my shoulder. "Delete them, or your brother learns what happens to people who cross me." "Let her go." Dad stepped forward, but Serafina's grip only tightened. "The papers first, Emmett. Sign them, or your daughter joins her mother in whatever tragic accident comes next." My phone clattered to the floor as she twisted harder. Through tears of pain, I watched Dad pick up the pen with trembling hands. "I'm sorry," he whispered, beginning to sign. In that moment, I saw our future unraveling. Dad broken, Jasper trapped, Mom's killer triumphant. All because I'd pushed too hard, too fast. Because I'd thought having evidence would be enough. The sound of sirens cut through the night. "That would be the police." Gran's voice rang from the stairs. I called them the moment I saw James Morton's car. "Did you really think I wouldn't recognize him from the fraud warnings I've been tracking?" Serafina's grip loosened just enough. I twisted free, diving for my phone. She lunged after me, but Dad finally moved, stepping between us. "It's over," he said. "Nothing's over," Serafina spat, backing toward the window. "You have no proof. No evidence. Just the ramblings of a grieving family and a disturbed teenager." She was right. The notebook was ashes, and I hadn't actually backed up Jasper's photos. We had nothing except, "We have Mom's letter to the insurance adjuster," I realized aloud. "The one that's been sitting in their fraud department for 3 years, waiting for someone to connect the dots." Serafina's face went white as red and blue lights flooded the room. Sometimes I thought, watching her mask finally shatter completely, the best revenge isn't what you do. It's what you make others do to themselves. The interrogation room felt smaller with each passing hour. Through the one-way glass, I watched Serafina maintain her composure as detectives cycled through, her answers practiced and precise. She'd done this before. Many times. We need more than circumstantial evidence, Detective Morris said, spreading photos across the table. Different names, different faces, all Serafina. She's too good at covering her tracks. Dad sat with his head in his hands. I let her into our lives. I let her near my children. Not your fault, Gran said firmly, but I barely heard them. Something about the photos nagged at me. A pattern I couldn't quite grasp. My phone buzzed, a text from Luca. Check your email. Now. The surveillance footage he'd recovered from the coffee shop loaded slowly. There was Serafina weeks ago having what looked like a casual conversation with James Morton. But with the volume increased, their words became clear. Once the art sold, we split it 50-50, she was saying. Just like the others. Morton's response chilled me. And the boy. Jasper's my insurance. Emmett won't risk losing him. I replayed it, hands shaking. Detective Morris? I need you to look at something. But Serafina's voice cut through the room. I want to speak with Callie. Alone. Everyone protested, but I was already moving toward the interrogation room. This ended now.